Yo, what's good people? So if you've been a long-term viewer of my channel, you know that Nightcrawler was one of the first champions I ever made a showcase on. I've always had a soft spot for this champion and I adore his unique ability to basically dex the undexable, and you'll see examples of that in this video. So I thought it would only be fitting to make a rank 4 showcase for this guy on December to remember. Now he's a pretty good counter for Yelena. Of course he doesn't have access to Daunted. In general, Nightcrawler does lack utility apart from being able to dex tricky and undexable stuff. However, he does possess some really strong damage. His damage is great, especially if you get good crit RNG. No surprise there. You do really want to crit with this guy, but that's a Yelena in 52 seconds. And that could be even faster if we got good crit RNG. So the first example of Nightcrawler just doing silly stuff is being able to dex Nick Fury's special one with ease. And the way Nightcrawler works is you kind of actually want to play him like Starkey, because whenever you dex you'll gain a prowess and you can gain up to 10 prowess this way. So yeah, he's literally kind of like the mutant Starkey. Of course he's nowhere near as good as him, but he's a great champion in his own regards. A lot of people have completely forgotten about him, but I love him. I don't even have him as a 7-star. I wish I did, because I would have ranked him up on the main server a long time ago. That's a Nick Fury in 43 seconds. Who needs to cancel the second life when you just do a bazillion damage? Now we have this Kingpin. Kingpin is coming as a 7-star, so we're going to see him floating about a lot more in Battlegrounds. And if you just so happen to have a Nightcrawler, he absolutely cooks him. Now, despite Nightcrawler lacking utility, I do think he can be worth ranking, and I do think he can be great for certain metas in Battlegrounds, because if you don't have an evade counter for this guy, he will cook you in certain metas, especially in like a stun immune Battlegrounds meta, stuff like that. He will be insanely tricky on defense, very elusive, very hard to hit, and you're going to have a rough time. And even if your opponent does get a good counter to him, which there aren't that many good counters, there's like Spider-Woman, Okoye, because you can't actually decrease Nightcrawler's evade chance with ability accuracy reduction. So normal evade counters won't always work against this guy. Like slow doesn't work against him, crossbones doesn't work against him, stuff like that. Ensnare certainly does, cold snap, stuff like that. But yeah, I do think he can be a very solid defender in certain metas in Battlegrounds, and if your opponent does get a counter to him, you can just use him on attack. He's not the most versatile champion out there, like he doesn't handle that many tricky defenders. You're probably flabbergasted here because you're seeing me completely dex Serpent special attacks, which is funny, but it's kind of sad. It's a bittersweet matchup because yes, Nightcrawler can dex all of Serpent's bullshit with ease. However, he's not good for this matchup. At least he's not fast for it, because of all Serpent's crit resistance, you're not going to crit against this guy super often. So this is just a very slow matchup, and Nightcrawler has no way to handle Serpent's regeneration at the end of the match. If he had access to Daunted, he would have a way to handle that regeneration, and maybe he would actually be a good counter to Serpent. But otherwise, yeah, this is just a very slow matchup. Honestly, Nightcrawler obviously got buffed, but they should just revisit him, give him like a Daunted. And I think giving him that would make him so much more popular. I think loads of people would rank him up if he just had that extra piece of utility. That would go so far for him. And imagine if instead of instant bleeds, he dealt instant neuroshock damage. That would be so based, and that would just make him so much more versatile, because obviously there's a lot of bleed immune champions, especially in terms of defenders in Battlegrounds. So that's why he's not nearly as versatile as he could be. He relies on bleeds and he relies on critting. if he did instant neuroshock damage instead of bleed, which wouldn't really make sense to be honest, but it would be very cool and it would make him so much better. Yeah, he could be a very popular champion for Battlegrounds. It's unfortunate, man, because Nightcrawler is just, he's a champion that's like so close to being great. He's just missing that last piece of utility. He feels like he's 95% completed. They just forgot to load up the last 5% of the Nightcrawler. But that's an Enchantress in 51 seconds, which honestly, not the fastest time out there. Enchantress kind of fell off on defense nowadays. There's so many attackers which can nuke her in around 30 seconds. I'm sure Nightcrawler could have done that fight in about 30 seconds if we got better crit RNG, but we didn't, and that's the way it goes. Okay, now we're fighting Nico here, and you know, he's decent for this matchup. You can't really start ramping up until the buff immunity falls off you, otherwise you're going to get inflicted with a bunch of poisons and die. But he does take this fight relatively well. A nice thing about Nightcrawler is if you're stuck in the corner, it's super easy to constantly just wall bank Dex in the corner and not get hit. Because again, Nightcrawler just has that special ability. Basically, his dexterity window is about, I want to say 50% longer than a average champion, maybe more than that. And now we have a Shuri. He's pretty good against tech champions which can bleed at least. I can dex Shuri's special attacks even without using Nightcrawler, but having the extra safety net of Nightcrawler there is nice to have, because I do mess up sometimes. But with Nightcrawler, it's basically impossible to mess up dexing Shuri's special attacks. And he does actually nuke this matchup in 30 seconds, which is quite impressive to be honest, because Shuri is a lot tankier than she looks. She has all those passive armors, but obviously the bleeds bypass that. When we crit, we're going to bypass most of that as well. He's also a pretty good option for Fam. Fam tried to like intercept me there. Luckily the evade saved us. Nightcrawler has two modes. He has the swashbuckling mode and the like nepticism mode. When you're in nepticism, you do have a chance to evade, so it's a nice safety net, but you want to be in swashbuckling mode to get the most damage out of this guy. It would be nice if he had a chance to auto evade special attacks like Starkey does or something like that. That would have also been a really cool addition to his kit. I'm just suggesting so many different changes they could have made to Nightcrawler, because again, he's so close to being a top tier mutant. He's just missing something. Honestly, even guaranteed crits on his special attacks would have gone a long way. He does have a high chance to crit because he gains those passive precisions. However, he doesn't always crit on his special attacks. I'd say it's like a 75% to 25% crit ratio, meaning 25% of the time you're not going to crit. If he had guaranteed crits on his special attacks, he would do plenty of damage even against bleed immune champions, and that would really help him. He's a great counter to Jean Grey. There's nothing really stopping him from taking this matchup. But Nightcrawler, you know, he is flimsy, he is a glass cannon, so if you do mess up in this match, you're probably gonna die. You know, this guy has like lower health than even Starkey, I think, which is pretty insane. It's warranted him having a low health pool though. I mean, look at him, he's a tiny man, and I'm not trying to hate on the short kings out here because I'm a short king myself, but like, look at him, bro. Nightcrawler's tiny. Of course he's not packing a lot of health, but he definitely packs a punch. He's got some very decent damage. Alright, last match of the video is Spider-Woman, and Nightcrawler can actually dex Spider-Woman's special 1 even when he has the fumble debuff on him, which is great. You know, he's not like a perfect counter to Spider-Woman because obviously she can still evade him, but just being able to dex that special 1 whenever you want is such a great piece of utility for Spider-Woman, because we know she loves throwing those special ones into your block. But yeah, that's going to be the end of the video. If you did enjoy it, you know what to do. This is December to remember, so uploads coming every single day this month. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.